There's the sweeping view over the feature match area here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, where it is just after 5:25 local time. Let's take a look at the players we're going to see in round 10.
Tom Martell, United States, winner of Pro Tour Gatecrash. I'm playing Blue-White-Red Flash in Standard and Blue-White-Red Control in Modern.
Dmitriy Butakov from Russia, Magic Online champion, playing Blue-White-Red Control in Standard and Gift Rock in Modern.
All right, those are our two competitors. There's a good shot of Dmitry Butakov, once again our Magic Online champion. We haven't seen Tom Martell on camera all weekend, so we're going to get to see him playing his control deck against this Gibbs deck. Where do you see the advantage?
This matchup's pretty close. I do like Martell's chances just because he's got enough counter magic and Vendilion clicks to disrupt Dmitry, and all his spells play at instant speed like Snapcaster and Restoration Angel, so he doesn't really need to ever tap out, and if Dmitry ever goes to flashback on Burial Rites, I mean, that takes quite a bit of mana, and it's on the main phase.
So we see a very modern start to this match.
Modern is not short on shuffling.
A couple of fetch lands. Verdant Catacombs for Dmitry and Arid Mesa for Tom Martell. So for the folks watching at home who were thinking about picking up this Gibbs Ungiven deck, or who are playing against this Gibbs Ungiven deck, any tips for how to break out the split?
So generally, you're not going to get a choice. If the Gift deck's plan is going, according to what they want, they just search for Unburial Rites and Elesh Norn, and then your option is to put them both in the graveyard, or also put them both in the graveyard. So usually there's not much to work with there. This start's actually almost bad for Dmitry already because he doesn't have one of his Birds of Paradise or Deathrite Shamans. He's playing a full 7 1-drops because you really want one on turn 1. So not having one is a little unfortunate. On the other hand, if he does have a Tarmogoyf here, that can actually pressure Tom, even though Tom can Lightning Bolt it.
And there is the Tarmogoyf.
So Tom perusing the deck list. It's still strange to me to see players looking at deck lists during events. There was a time when that would not have been allowed.
That would not have been allowed at all. That's a stylish old school Tarmogoyf even for Dmitry
Oh yeah,
Butakov.
the Future Sight ones look great. I like the Modern Master ones too. You can actually tell what's going on, but I always like playing the older version of cards. So
funny considering the Future Sight as older.
right.
Older.
So it looks like Martell doesn't have a Lightning Bolt here, which is kind of bad for him, but he does have both a Helix and a Mana Leak, so he's going to be able to play something on turn 2 regardless.
And Scalding Tarn, we see there, Steam Vents for Tom Martell off his Arid Mesa. Is he going to potentially play on his turn the Lightning Helix to take out that Tarmogoyf to prevent Dmitry from dumping extra things in the graveyard?
Yeah, normally that's a pretty safe play, but since Tom does have Dmitry's deck list, I think part of what he's looking at is seeing how Dmitry could potentially grow the Goyf to a 3-4, or actually even a 2-3 because instants count after damage. But in this case, there isn't much Dmitry can do because he doesn't have mana for gifts yet. So Martell's actually fine to wait here. He might want to shoot it before he takes damage, but he doesn't actually have to kill it on his main phase.
All right, so Martell with another fetch land, Scalding Tarn, passes the turn back, and Dmitry's going to shock himself to get his third land into play.
A nice combination of Hallowed Fountain, Overgrown Tomb, and Temple Garden.
And that's Lingering Souls, a card that Tom Martell is familiar with.
Yeah, he's cast a lot of Lingering Souls in his time. See, now Tom does have it's kind of forcing his hand. If he doesn't Lightning Helix the Tarmogoyf here, then it's going to end up being too big for him to kill with Lightning Helix. So I imagine that's what his plan is here, especially since mana leaking a Lingering Souls is generally not very profitable.
Okay, so
with the Helix.
Shocks himself down to 16.
This leaves Butakov with just Unburial Rites and Path, and Unburial Rites is actually a card you never want to draw in the deck, so, or at least rarely. So he was kind of counting on that Tarmogoyf to do a lot of damage.
I might still have tokens if that's useful. No, actually, I didn't bother bringing them.
Players looking for a couple of tokens.
There you go.
Looks like Dmitry drew me out.
There's 2 of them.
That seems...
It would be better.
Yeah.
There we go.
We've got some Tezzerets instead.
I'm sure we'll get the official tokens here momentarily. Back to Martell's turn. Looks like he's drawn a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, Martell actually has a lot to work with here. He's got a pretty full grip, which the blue-white-red deck tends to have, with Snapcaster, Mana Leak, and Shadow of Doubt, all pretty good weapons. Shadow of Doubt is especially good in this matchup. It stops Gifts Ungiven, it stops fetch lands. Those are both pretty important things to do.
Hallowed Fountain there into play tapped for Tom. Obviously, he's showing he doesn't need the 3 mana.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not. There's no 3 mana spells in his horizon until he casts the Think Twice. But he's okay just taking 2 a turn for a little while here. I mean, it is pressure, and if Dmitry flashes back, Tom will have to do something. But for the most part, Tom has a lot of cards to work with.
Okay, there are our tokens. Marsh Flats for Dmitry.
So Tom could have cast Shadow of Doubt there, but he's got bigger fish to fry. I mean, countering Gifts Ungiven is a higher priority for sure.
So you like Shadow of Doubt as a sort of metagame choice for Modern in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for it to miss completely just because fetch lands are so prevalent, but in general, it's not really for gifts, though it's nice against it. It's for Scapeshift.
Right.
And both that and Malirapod. It's good against both those decks because Birthing Pod and Scapeshift both require you to search your library. So Shadow of Doubt is also a pretty low-cost way because it draws you a card.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really cost a whole lot to put in your deck. Even in a matchup where it's dead, you can just cycle it.
Okay, there's Liliana.
Which is almost assuredly going to draw a Mana Leak here since Liliana is one of the things the blue-red deck does not like playing against.
There is the Mana Leak as predicted.
Liliana is also very good in the Gifts deck because you can discard Lingering Souls and Unburial Rites and all these cards with Flashback, or the Elish Norn or Sun Titan if you want.
Right. That's called synergy, huh?
It is.
All right, back to Tom Martell's turn. He is looking over his hand, which includes Snapcaster Mage, Shadow of Doubt, Think Twice, couple 3 lands, Scalding Tarn, Tech Edge, and an island. There is the Tectonic Edge.
Yeah, Dmitry's deck's kind of working according to plan here, even though he hasn't resolved much between the Helix and the Mana Leak. Lingering Souls does actually pressure blue-red fairly well, unless Tom can draw like a Restoration Angel or an Electrolyze. Electrolyze would be his first choice, I'm sure. He is going to have to do something about those tokens, up to and including Snapcastering Lightning Helix, which is not the best value in the world, though it does take a lot of pressure off him.
All right, so the attack takes Martell down to 15, Dmitry Butakov at 13.
And I think Tom is glad here that Dmitry's not flashing back Lingering Souls. Dmitry's worried about,
I have 4.
I guess, a counterspell, maybe like a Cryptic Command. He doesn't really want to walk into it, but at this point, he's two points a turn. Oh, and he drew a Gifts Ungiven, so that actually it explains why he didn't flash back Lingering Souls.
And it's going to draw a Shadow of Doubt.
Which Tom did save for that particular case.
Draw from the shadow?
Yep.
Tom Martell's going to draw from the shadow, and we're going to tell you that Yuya Watanabe has taken a fast game 1 from Shuhei Nakamura.
Especially fast considering it's the blue-red control mirror.
What happened?
Yeah, one of them might have been Lamplight. I mean, they're not even playing Geist or Restoration Angels, I don't think, in their version. So, like, it is not going to be easy for them to finish the game quickly.
All right, Tom Martell on your left, Dmitry Butakov on your right. We are in round 10 action here from Amsterdam in the Magic World Championship.
With Tom sitting on still a bunch of cards, I mean, he can flashback Think Twice, he can Snapcaster. He's got some spot removal, which, again, not the best against Lingering Souls, but he's got a high enough life total that he can afford to take another couple turns of hits.
Okay, he drops Scalding Tarn and says, go ahead, Dmitry. Butakov's going to fetch on his own. There's a little bit of a good look at his deck.
He looks like he has multiple versions of Tarmogoyf. He has different pictures.
You know, those things sometimes aren't easy to come by.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf's not a cheap card. This is going to be kind of funny, though, because I think Dimitri's going to start casting Unburial Rites for value, just getting back Tarmogoyf. I mean, if he doesn't draw anything, he could either do that or flashback Lingering Souls, so I would not be surprised if he tries to just bring Tarmogoyf back into play.
Does he have enough black? He doesn't. I was going to... He does have enough. No, he doesn't.
He needs
one more black.
Well, he needs a 6th land or a 7th land to do both in the same turn, which he doesn't quite have. So he's staring down the barrel of a Path to Exile, which is not really what you want. Yep, there goes. This isn't the way the deck is planned to work, but you know, it's not bad to use your cards. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to win. That's, you know, like Godinez at that 1 GP in Baltimore, where he just went on the Snapcaster beatdown.
Yeah, sometimes you cast turn 2 Snapcaster and attack them a bunch of times. So
In that situation, he actually cast 3 of them.
I didn't catch that, but that is a pretty nice start. Just a bunch of ambush vipers. So Tom has a couple ways to deal with this. He can mana leak it, but then he'd have to worry about it getting flashed back. He could just path the Tarmogoyf, in which case the Unburial Rites wouldn't do quite as much. But either way, he's got some options.
Steam Vent into play for Tom Martell off the Scalding Tarn. Tom really is not too worried about Dmitri's life total here, right? Once he establishes control, he's going to establish control of the game.
Yeah, I mean, in this matchup especially, Tom's not generally going to be trying to race him. Tom does have Vendillion Click and Restoration Angel, so he has certain draws where he attacks a lot. But I think, for the most part, he's worried about just making the board clear. So yeah, I think Tom's looking at potentially pathing the Tarmogoyf here, since he just flashed back, think twice to see if he gets something, to just see if he has any other options.
You have 1 card?
Yep.
There also aren't any spells Dmitry can't cast except Elishnorn right now with the 7th land. So it's not necessarily going to help him that much. Tom's also checking to see if he has any basics to get, which he does. He has a forest left. He could also be looking to make sure Dmitry's not playing some 10 casting cost card. He wants to know what the drawback is of pathing him here.
Some of these decks play Grizzlebrand too, right?
Yeah, occasionally they play Gristlebrand or Terraston, like both that cost 8, so it is a danger here, but Tom can actually see that Elishnorn is the only other option, and I don't think Tom is too worried about that. I mean, he can always just path it. He might lose the Snapcaster to the Elishnorn, but it still lets him path flashback path. So.
All right. Tom Martell draws for his turn. We see that it's a land right over the top. Aerial view of our feature match area. The A table, as we call it.
Yeah, so Tom does have an Ajani Vengeance here, which is something he wants to get online, because, the Planeswalkers do, every turn you get more and more advantage out of them, but Lingering Souls fights against Planeswalkers very well.
So we're both at 12, right?
There you hear Tom verifying life totals.
So, like, if he, for example, wanted to lightning use Ajani's -2, it would let the other Lingering Souls token kill it, so he's probably better off like playing it and making it so one of them doesn't untap if he wants to play the Ajani this turn. But it
looks like he's going to do that. That's Ajani Vengeance.
Doesn't untap.
There, and as predicted.
Locks down one of the tokens. So now they're at parity here in terms of tokens versus Ajani's loyalty, but Tom obviously can just always cast a removal spell and pull ahead in the race.
Yep.
Yeah, he takes one as Dmitry swings across, dropping Ajani's loyalty to 3.
Yeah, the Lingering Souls still doing some work. I mean, Dmitry can flashback Lingering Souls if you want, or play the Reliquary he just drew.
There's Knight of the Reliquary.
Sure.
And Tom Martell says, okay.
Yeah, Spell Snare not doing a whole lot of work against that Knight. So now Tom is actually under a bit of pressure here, since there are a bunch of Lingering Souls tokens in play.
And he's going to flash, and Dimitri's going to flash back for 2 more.
Yeah, so now he's doubled his the amount of souls he has. Which means that Tom's probably going to have to use the Snapcaster to path the Knight of the Reliquary, since it's big enough right now that it should survive Lightning Helix. And looking at Dimitri's list, he has a Treetop Village in terms of lands that provide value, so and a Gavany Township. Both those are pretty big threats, and I don't think Tom wants to see either of those enter play here, so he's going to have to kill the Knight before Dmitry untaps. Gavany Township especially would do quite some work here, doubling the clock on the Lingering Souls.
Gavany Township, of course, puts a +1/+1 counter on all creatures you control.
Yeah, so it does make the long game better for the Gifts deck here.
All right, Martell untaps. Got plenty of mana to do whatever he wants. Cards like Snapcaster Mage, Path to Exile are inexpensive to cast.
1 card.
Unfortunately for him, this Spell Snare is not really doing a whole lot for him.
Got a Restoration Angel in his hand?
Where did he draw? Martell, like many players, likes flicking the cards in his hand fairly quickly. They teach you to do that when you win your first PTQ, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like you drew a Restoration Angel, so he's going to get to double Snapcaster, so that does give him some options here. He is probably going to have to path this Knight right now, so he's not going to be able to Restoration Angel, Snapcaster, and flashback another spell, but he might be able to wait a turn here, especially since his Ajani is not necessarily going to die. He can put it up. He can put it up to 4, make a token not untap, and then have it go back down to 1. So if he wants to wait, he can get the full value off the Restoration Angel. Otherwise, he could just play it to block one of the tokens, which isn't bad either, though Dmitry does still have a Path to Exile that he'd love to use here.
And you really want to get the value off of blinking the Snapcaster Mage.
If you can afford to, it's certainly preferable. It looks like Martell's not worrying about this Ajani anymore. He's just going to go beat down here, try to start killing all the spirits. He could also hope that Dmitry doesn't attack the spirits.
Tom pauses him in his upkeep, says, nope. All right, go ahead, draw your card.
Interesting. He could be representing a Vendilion Click, though you'd want to do that during draw step. Or it could be representing a Cryptic Command, potentially. I mean, Dmitry doesn't have any counter magic, so there aren't that many things Martell would actually want to cast on upkeep, but he does like giving Dmitry some thought about what he has.
Everybody at Ajani, and it goes away. Tom Martell going back to the list.
Yeah, trying to see if there's anything in particular he should be worried about, besides, of course, these 3 tokens that are putting him under a decent amount of pressure.
Reed Duke, we hear, has taken game 1 from Josh Utter-Layton on one of the back tables. A win in this round from Reed Duke certainly puts him in strong contention to be one of the top 4. It looks like Tom Martell just drew Cryptic Command.
14 to 10.
He sort of confidently gets Snapcaster Mage into the red zone, drops Butakov down to 12.
And Cryptic, just like it was for Ben Stark in the limited rounds yesterday, is a very good draw.
It's another Knight of the Reliquary there for Dmitry.
That's from the Vault one too, I believe, or one of the foil promos.
Going to attack with 2 of them, obviously keeping one back for the Snapcaster to block the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, it looks like Dmitry doesn't really want to race 3 versus 2. He'd rather race 2 versus 0.
Yep.
Tom looking over his options.
Yeah, he can Restoration Angel to block. If he wants to, he can go for it. He can Restoration Angel, blink Snapcaster, target Lightning Helix, and then just block one of the tokens and take 1, leaving Cryptic up. And then if Dmitry doesn't do anything this turn, flashback Lightning Helix. He would like to leave Cryptic up. I mean, Dmitry's deck has a lot of really powerful plays, so you don't want to be caught defenseless if he just drew an Elish Norn or a Sun Titan.
All right, there's the Restoration Angel from Tom Martell. He's going to target Snapcaster Mage. And then going to target the Lightning Helix.
Dmitry considering a Path to Exile. Looks like he's just not interested in having the Angel block, though he does not mind the Snapcaster coming out. Which I think is good, because, I mean, the Snapcaster can kill a token, but the Angel kills a token and lives, so you'd much rather just get Path the Angel. Tom, I think, wisely choosing not to Cryptic.
Yeah, he's gonna keep the Cryptic Command mana up for something a little more damaging.
Which is likely to be this Knight of the Reliquary. I don't think Dmitry can hold back from casting it.
There it is. And I'm pretty sure we will see that Cryptic Command.
Yeah, it's a shame giving up the Lightning Helix flashback, but Knight of the Reliquary is certainly a threat, and especially since Tom doesn't really have a whole lot in his hand besides the Cryptic. He's, I think, kind of forced into using it here.
So counter draw card?
Yeah, you could counter and kill a token, but I think countering and drawing a card is slightly better. I mean, Martell has so many cards that are good to draw here. He could also bounce Snapcaster
Mage.
Which gives him an extra use out of the Cryptic.
Fair.
Though, these Lingering Souls tokens continue pecking away. Tom's really hoping to draw Sphinx's Revelation here. That would just about put the game away.
He is going to Tech Edge Overgrown Tomb.
Interesting. He's just cutting off Dmitry off a 7th land. I suppose worried about, again, Elish Norn. Though he does have Cryptic Command at his beck and call here, so there's that.
And with the Snapcaster Mage, he has Lightning Helix, he has Path to Exile.
The path got flashback, but I think he has Helix, Cryptic Command, Mana Leak, though that's not generally quite as good as Cryptic Command. So he's got a number of options. Cryptic Command generally going to be the best one. As he goes to Dmitry goes to Unburial Rights here. This likely will get Snapcaster Cryptic. Unburial Rights went the full mile here.
11 to 10.
It drew out 2 counterspells, which is not really much more you can ask for, or a counterspell and a path to exile.
14, then you took 2 from 2 spirits.
All right, little discussion about the life totals.
Yeah, they're debating whether it would
that
happen.
turn you tagged me for 2.
So
I missed that. I mean, hold on.
It looks like Martell should be at 9
I
here.
played the Restoration Angel. Yeah, you played Restoration. I didn't take the damage.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay. So both players agreeing on the life total. Always good to see top-level sportsmanship here at the World Championship.
Yeah, next turn
I
I'll
took 2.
take
Yeah,
the 3.
I took 2. Yeah, I just didn't write down the. They put me to 12. Yeah, you're definitely right. Okay, sorry.
Luckily,
so
this life total incident is resolved without much problem. I've seen worse.
I think we all have.
You probably more than me, but
I'm gonna snap.
Well, back in the day, there was that failure to agree on reality thing.
yeah. Luckily, that doesn't come up anymore.
That
so.
doesn't come up anymore.
So it looks like Knight got counter drawn, and then
Sure.
Dmitry follows up with his real spell, the Birds of Paradise.
Well, the Birds of Paradise, of course, dangerous once Gavany Township comes online.
Yeah, if he draws a Gavany Township, he is in pretty good shape. And Martell's got all counter spells here, so he actually is under a pretty quick clock. The Celestial Colonnade is going to do some work. That card is one of the reasons Blue Red is awesome, by the way. Just having your lands turn into 4 Serra Angels.
Yeah.
I guess otherwise known as Serra Angels. But still, I mean, this game is far from over. Dmitry has a lot of really good draws left in his deck, as does Martell.
Okay, Dmitry, 1 card left in hand.
Martell could also go on the warpath here. Hitting with Colonnade and Snapcaster does put Dmitry under a pretty fast clock.
Big value with the Celestial Colonnade is that it has Vigilance.
Yeah, and Martell's actually only like 1 land away from being able to attack and block with it because he has a land in hand.
Okay, he is going on the offensive. Birds of Paradise does some chump block duty.
You're at 8.
Drops Butakov to 8.
And the additional land.
Good.
Now-
Mana Leak and Spellstorm might still play a part in this game, too.
Does Dmitry have any flashback things left in his graveyard?
No, he should be out at this point.
Oh, we see a Sun Titan in his hand, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately for him, that Mana Leak is still burning a hole in Tom's pocket.
Sun Titan.
Mana Leak. On the Sun Titan, Dmitry doesn't have the 3 mana to pay.
Tectonic Edge helped a little there.
As Dmitry Butakov gets into the red zone with 2 tokens, we hear that Yuya Watanabe and Shuhei Nakamura are tied 1-1 in their match on one of the back tables.
All right, so with Martell at 7, Dmitry at 8, this colony is going to be fairly decisive here. Well, that lightning bolt that it looks like Martell drew is going to be pretty good, too.
So even before the lightning bolt draw, you were an advocate of the aggressive plan here, right?
Yeah, I like it. Once you look at the life totals, it actually makes a lot more sense for Martell just to be attacking. Especially since he does have cards like Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix, which are better in a race. He has more cards that are relevant there than Dmitry does.
Okay, Craig Wesco has taken game 1 from Brian Kibler on one of our other matches. That's, in fact, that's the text match, so you can read all about that on magicgathering.com, where you'll see all complete coverage of the Magic World Championship 2013. Lightning Bolt is going to take out that untapped token, and Martell is going to swing in for 6, dropping Butakov to 2.
And then now to 1 as he uses fetch land. Yeah, Butakov has some outs here, but another Lingering Souls might be one of his best draws. He's sadly a point short of winning with Elish Norn. What he doesn't want to draw here is something that costs 2, because walking into Spell Snare would be really unfortunate. I mean, he doesn't have a choice. He has to play anything he draws here, but Spell Snare does cut off the range of things that will be useful.
Quick shuffle from Tom Martell on Dmitry's deck.
Dmitry does have a Ghost Quarter, too, for an uncounterable way to kill Celestial Colonnade. Because of Knight of the Reliquary, he's got a couple, good value lands. All right.
Here we go. Let's see what Dmitry Butakov draws.
Or not, as the case may be.
He just passes the turn.
That does cut down the range of things it can be pretty dramatically.
Spell Snare, the one card in Tom Martell's hand. He looks at it a couple of times. Start doing some math. He cracks his Arid Mesa. And is going to go fetch up the planes.
He would have drawn a lightning bolt as he clucks at himself here.
Never look.
Yeah, that is why you don't look. I always look, but you shouldn't. Don't do what I do.
Always, never look.
Yes, exactly.
All right, pressure here from Tom Martell on Dmitry Butakov, who is at 1. Butakov is gonna have to block with both.
Yeah, and that leaves him with nothing versus Celestial Colonnade, and then Tom actually drew a looks like a Vendilion Click here, which certainly a good draw. Since not only is it a lethal creature, it also makes it so he can take a look at Dimitri's hand during his draw step and take anything that stops him. Or he can just do it now just to see if he should go for the win.
No. Me.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Martell's cashing in his Spell Snare for something better.
You're definitely unlikely to matter. But
So Dimitri's down to mostly just drawing another Lingering Souls here.
Yep, block. That will trade one of the Lingering Souls tokens for the Snapcaster Mage, but nothing on the draw for Dmitry Butakov. Tom Martell takes game 1 in this round 10 action from the 2013 Magic the Gathering World Championship. Ultra Pro is a leading manufacturer of trading card games, sleeves, and deck boxes. If you're looking for official Magic 2014 portfolios, card storage boxes, deck boxes, sleeves, and playmats, Ultra Pro has you covered. For more information, visit wizards.com/magic merchandise. All right, what do you think we're going to see on a sideboard plan as we swoop in overhead from the feature match area?
So Tom has some Thundermaw Hellkites that are definitely coming in. Not only do they kill Lingering Souls tokens and Birds of Paradise, they also just pressure Dmitry, which is something he's looking for. He's also got another Vendilion Click. He could bring in Pyroclasm, which isn't great. It kills Death Rites and Birds and Lingering Souls. Supreme Verdict and Counterflux are also reasonable additions. And Supreme Verdict counters most of the things Dmitry could reanimate with gifts.
Thundermaw Hellkite has become a card. A few months back, it was sort of a sideboard-ish, sometimes get played card. It's a thing now.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's showing up in Modern.
All right, there's Snapcaster Mage up on your screen. I mean, this has been a high-impact card in multiple formats.
Yeah, Snapcaster might have dethroned Dark Confidant as the best invitational card. I'll let others make that determination. But the fact that it is incredibly versatile is basically its main strength. It's both powerful and versatile. It only costs 2. I mean, that by itself is a pretty huge boon.
And again, it's a 2/1 creature on its own, so it can do some battling.
Yeah, what ends up usually happening is you play it and you draw an extra card off it, either by lightning bolting their creature or drawing a card off like Gitaxian Probe or flashing back a Thought Scour, anything like that. And if you looked at the game Tom Martell just played, he has 4 Snapcasters and a wide selection of instants and sorceries, mostly instants to flash back with it.
Cheap ones too.
Yeah, they're all
Lightning Bolt,
like
Path to
1 to
Exile.
2 mana with Cryptic Command and Electrolyze being kind of the outliers.
But once we get into the late game, certainly 6 mana for a Snapcaster, Cryptic Command, not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, and as you saw, he was able to do that. It could even flash back Sphinx's Revelation, which is something that does happen more often in Standard, but still is a play in here in Modern. So I would be surprised if a card as powerful as Snapcaster would come along too that often. I mean, it
Right.
certainly had an effect on every single format.
As we were talking about before we cut to the Snapcaster Mage, Thundermaw Hellkite has really become a thing lately.
Yeah, it's huge in Standard, but the fact that it's having an impact in Modern too is impressive. I mean, 5 casting cost cards they have a high bar to hit impact in Modern. So Tom has a lot of options here. I don't know which of his cards he really doesn't like, since a lot of his deck is also good against
Right.
Dimitri's main deck. Johnny Vengeance might not be the best against Lingering Souls, but it is still a powerful card. He only has one Think Twice. I hadn't caught that till now.
All right, you can see Tom Martell's stats up there on the board. He is 31 years old, 166 career pro points. Got to be, he's closing in on 200 now, closing in on $100,000 in career winnings. We know he has 2 top 8s in the Pro Tour, of course, with a win, and a really nice 63% win percentage at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, his win percentage is very high, and his actually 3-year median is the best. Was the best on the Hall of Fame ballot this year with 16. Which is pretty absurd.
That's as high as any Hall of Famer, from what I understand.
Yeah, it is certainly not bad. I actually have known Tom for now about 16 years. We went to the same high school.
It's like Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand. You guys,
all the talent, who's who.
all the talent is condensed into one spot. We also see Tom's 4 Grand Prix top 8s. We know he also has a win. 279 career GP wins, and we see a 62% win percentage at the GP level, meaning his Pro Tour winning percentage is higher than his GP winning percentage. We don't see that a lot.
Yeah, that is not a stat that often comes up.
So we know he's a guy that brings his A game when he comes.
It would be interesting to see what his Lingering Souls adjusted stats. It has been such a big part of his winning, which is just for amusement purposes only. But Tom, it is kind of funny that he's actually playing against the card this round, since that is not usually what happens. Dmitri's got some sideboard options as well here. He's got mostly negates are what he's interested in, but Slaughter Games and Thragtusk actually perform an interesting anti-control package. I'm not sure if he's interested in casting 4 or 5 mana cards, but Slaughter Games is uncounterable, which is very good.
That could be huge against him.
Yeah, since even just getting to see what Tom is up to is a pretty valuable thing. Knowing that they have Mana Leak in their hand makes it a lot easier to play around.
All right, so both players are drawing their openers. We'll look and see on the mulligans. Oh, it looked like a snap mulligan for Dmitriy Butakov.
Yeah, he must not have had very many land. Usually you think about things a little longer than that, but if he's just snapping it off, it must have not have been very close to keepable at all.
That generally the 5 or 6 land hand, you don't snap ship, you think about for a second.
Yeah, you think about it, then you mulligan it, but you at least think about it. You're like, is this one spell good enough?
All right, if you're gonna give some of the viewers at home one tip on the mulligan, what would it be?
I think it would probably be like, if you have to think about it for a long time, you should probably ship it. That has been my experience. Usually when you're thinking about it that long, you're trying to convince yourself to keep something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and certainly that's an elite level skill. The mulligan is one of the things that separates the great player from the very good player.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I will not claim that I've mastered it.
All right, we're underway. Watery Grave meets Hallowed Fountain.
Yeah.
Or is that Colonnade?
It's a colonnade.
Oh,
it's a hallowed fountain with legs.
Yeah. Celestial Colonnade for Tom Martell.
Which was pretty decisive last game. I mean, it's not clear who would have won going much longer, but the colonnade certainly did a lot of work for Martell.
What do you think of Martell there using the tech edge to keep Butakov off of the 7th land as opposed to holding it in case of Gavany Township?
I think that it's a pretty close call. I probably would have held it just because it's going to be very hard to beat the Gavany Township, but he didn't know whether Butakov had Elish Norn or not, because there is only one spell that it's relevant against. If he had a second Tectonic Edge, I would be more in favor of using it, but with just the one, I'm not sure if taking him from 7 to 6 is high impact enough.
All right, we see turn 2, Tarmogoyf from Dmitry Butakov. Another Verdant Catacombs gets cracked.
Martell may have kept a hand without red mana here, since he went Colonnade into Plains. So that does limit the amount of lands he could have in his hand. If he had Steam Vents or that sort of thing, he might not have played it just to not pay 2 life. But if he had a Lightning Bolt or Lightning Helix, he definitely would have played a red source.
Okay, we did see I think we saw a Tectonic Edge there in his hand. We'll get his hand up in a second as our spotters get the hands in. Tarmogoyf is currently just the 1/2.
Yeah, it looks like Martell doesn't have red, though. He does have a lot of spells.
There's a Liliana.
Yeah.
this early, that's very bad for him. But a mana leak takes care of Liliana. Unfortunately, that means that he takes 3 instead of 1.
Yeah, since Planeswalker is one of the counted categories for Tarmogoyf.
Okay, Glacial Fortress.
So Martell's coming up on 4 mana here, which does unlock a number of his cards in hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
Making
Sorry.
making sure Butakov's life total is right because of the Overgrown Tomb coming into play untapped. 17 Martell, 14 Butakov, and there is Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, I think Martell's about to, unveil his wrath here in a second as Supreme Verdict wipes these 2 guys off the board. You don't get a whole lot more value than that here.
3.
3 cards for Dmitry Butakov, Gripful for Tom Martell.
And 3 land. He didn't play a land this turn, so that makes it even more appealing to get Knight of the Reliquary off the board.
Yeah, he's got to Tech Edge and play the Tech Edge and cast Supreme Verdict, right?
Yeah, I mean, he drew, I think, a Scalding Tarn, so he could potentially fetch a mountain and do that, but I think he just chose to go with the Tech Edge here.
Is there any line of play that he doesn't play the Scalding Tarn because he wants Butakov to think that he's not going to have the red mana?
Yeah, I think there's no reason not to conceal it, especially since it's not like Butakov can play around Tech Edge. Is he not going to play his 4th land? I mean, that is not something that's likely to happen.
So Dmitry Butakov makes a pretty good answer to Supreme Verdict, Tarmogoyf, and Deathrite Shaman.
Instant sorcery land creature, 5/6.
Yes. Yeah, it's a large Tarmogoyf. It's a 5/6 right now.
It is currently a 5/6.
Business.
And Tom does have a path, but you don't really want to path someone who's stuck on 3 lands. I mean, that is not generally the thing you'd prefer to do.
2 cards left.
But you also don't want to take too many Tarmogoyf beats to the face.
No,
Especially with that Deathrite Shaman can drain your life away.
Yeah, I think what Tom is most likely to end up doing is like electrolyzing and then pathing and just, living with the fact that Butakov gets another land. He only has 2 cards in hand, so there aren't that many things he can do with them. And certainly taking 5 a turn isn't really what you want to be doing. There goes one of the Thunder Maws that Tom brought in.
Steam Vents.
Yeah, it looks like Tom does have a basic mountain, but because of Cryptic Command, he wants his 3rd blue guaranteed.
And that's worth the 2 life.
Yeah, especially if he does end up pathing and electrolyzing, he's under 0 pressure, so paying 2 life is not a big cost.
All right. Making sure he's got the mana right.
Yeah, he wants to tap the plains, but you do have to tap a colorless there.
Yeah, there's the Electrolyze. Takes care of Deathrite Shaman.
And then if you do want to path the Goyf, you should wait, just not to give him access to the tap land on his turn. Restoration Angel looking for a Snapcaster Vendilion to get some value off of.
We say he's a 5/6.
There's pretty spicy hand for Tom Martell. Sacred Foundry, Restoration Angel, Path to Exile, Electrolyze, Cryptic Command, and Supreme Verdict.
So he's playing around Negate here by pathing on his turn, since he does know that Butakov did side in Negate.
Or at least he knows Butakov has Negate to side in.
Yeah, I would say that
Pretty
I'm
good
going to give
chance.
both these players enough credit for Butakov to side it in, which it looked like he did looking through his deck, and for Martell to play around it. So.
Okay, we know Dmitry Butakov qualified being, there's his hand right there. Gifts Ungiven and Burial Rights. Those are 2 pretty good ones.
Yeah, and actually if he draws a 5th land, I wouldn't be surprised if he just, again, goes with the hardcast on Burial Rights plan. But he's just upkeep Gifting.
Yep.
So since he already has the Unburial Rights, it looks like he might actually set up a Life from the Loam engine here. That is one of the possibilities with Raven's Crime. Life from the Loam, Raven's Crime lets you dredge and then make your opponent discard their hand every single turn, or at least try to, 1 card at a time.
There's the Life from the Loam.
And Tectonic Edge to handle the Celestial Calling. So this is a big play here against blue-white-red control. And actually, Urborg can also sometimes be the missing piece of the puzzle because it makes it so all your lands tap for black. But you also have Ghost Quarter and Treetop Village as potential additions as well. Especially when you're getting Life from the Loam back, getting a land is pretty nice since it doesn't matter where it goes. Lingering Souls also, because it has flashback, it's just an additional bit of tokens just out of nowhere.
So what split do you make here?
If you're Tom, you probably don't want to give him the Lingering Souls or the Tectonic Edge, since he can always just dredge Life from the Loam, so you'd rather just give it to him because you don't want him to dump more cards and more options into his graveyard. And giving him the Lingering Souls in the graveyard does put does reduce the number of tokens you eventually have to deal with. And then Raven's Crime, I think, is slightly worse than Tectonic Edge. So we'll see how Tom splits it. Splitting gifts is not easy, so but in this particular case,
One card.
Tom has to also look at kind of what he's planning on doing. His hand doesn't really interact with this very much since he doesn't actually have any way to mess with the graveyard. So if he doesn't draw a way to get something on the board, then Raven's Crime and Life from the Loam actually puts him under a good amount of pressure.
Okay, Raven's Crime is a 1-black sorcery. Target player discards card. And it's retrace, meaning you can cast it from your graveyard by discarding a land. Means he could strip Tom Martell's hand
Wait, you just
for a long period of time, right?
Okay, yeah.
So let's see. Looks like he gave him the Lingering Souls and the Life from the Loam.
You are correct. Here we see the Tech Edge and the Raven's Crime in the graveyard.
Yep.
And we hear that Brian Kibler has tied his match with Craig Wesco. They are now at 1-1.
So Tom's best draw here is probably Thundermaw Hellkite, since getting in there is what he's interested in doing. But especially against Raven's Crime, you can't sandbag on counter spells and removal spells. But he does have the Restoration Angel, though, so that is actually a pretty solid play.
You really want to, I think a lot of players really want to make sure that they get to blink something with Restoration Angel, but sometimes the play is just to play it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is, at the end of the day, it's a 3/4 flash flyer, so I think that, especially when you're getting assaulted by Raven's Crime, you're probably going to want to end up putting Restoration Angel in.
Okay, Martell's at 11, Dmitry Butakov at 14, so that Restoration Angel puts a amount of pressure on Butakov, especially with the Colonnade coming across like it does right there.
Yeah, he just sends in the Colonnade for 4, dropping Dmitry to 10. So, I guess against Tectonic Edge, he really wants to make sure he attacks while he still can.
All right, Butakov chooses not to dredge.
Yeah, well, he
kept the Life from Loam in his hand, sorry.
Yeah, the Life from Loam got put in his hand, but he is going to cast it.
He is definitely going to cast it.
Yep.
So this engine is really cool. It allows him to play a land every turn. It allows him to make Tom discard a couple cards every turn. And as he dredges more cards, he might find targets for his Unburial Rights as well. But he's going to leave Tectonic Edge up here. And now he can either cast Raven's Crime or Birds of Paradise. They're both fairly valid options. He needs to save 1 mana to use the Tectonic Edge, though. Looks like he's Raven's Criming.
He is. Tom discards another Slush Colonnade. Is there any value here to Dmitry Tectonic Edging one of the not Celestial Colonnade lands?
No, he can't cut Tom off red. That'd be like the only other thing he's interested in. So since you can't do that, you might as well just kill the Colonnade.
Okay. Keeps him down a land.
Yeah. And at this point, Tom isn't going to activate it into a Tectonic Edge anyway, so you might as well just kill it now. Yeah, Tom has a handful of burn and a Restoration Angel, so he could actually just kill Dmitry out of nowhere here. Because if Dmitry does want a Raven's Crime, Tom, it takes up a good amount of his turn, just retracing it.
There's the dredge. Gifts Ungiven. There's one of those negates.
And hitting a Lingering Souls.
And hitting a Lingering Souls.
Yeah, Lingering Souls is pretty important here. Dmitry's not got a ton of black, but he can still cast a Birds.
Reed Duke continues his red-hot run toward the top 4 here in 2013, taking down his match 2-1 against Josh Utter-Layton.
Yeah, it looks like Reed is in good shape to make top 4 here. He hex-proofed his way to the win against Josh.
Josh mounted a bit of a comeback this morning.
Yeah, he 3-0'd the draft, so he's still in contention here. I mean, he still has to win his next 2 rounds, but it's going to be a little tougher. I mean, especially with the cumulative tiebreaker point system, taking a loss, the earlier that you take a loss, the harder it is.
Yeah, the cumulative tiebreaker system that we're using here at the World Championship basically,
You have 4 cards?
the person that gets to
Sorry, 5.
the number of points, in this case, it's probably going to be 24. The person that gets to 24 first has the better tiebreakers.
And at this point, Josh can only get to 24 in the last round. So, Tom having to choose what card to discard right now. He's got a decent amount of options here.
He is going to choose the Electrolyze. He definitely wants to keep that. He's going to flash in this Restoration Angel in a turn, I suspect.
Yeah, it looks like he's probably going to, or he's going to cast Cryptic Command. I could definitely see him keeping things down, but I think Tom might actually be better served by just casting Angel and having Lightning Bolt up. But
Oh, he's going for the Cryptic Command, I think. Oh,
he might go for
rethinking
the card advantage route here. I mean, casting Cryptic on the Life of the Loam does buy him a turn here, but
Oh,
yeah.
he says okay, so that's a pretty clear sign that he's going to flash in.
I think
Restoration
I don't think
Angel.
you're winning the long game against a deck that can attack your
mana base.
your mana base and your cards in hand this effectively. But
I'll float a red.
Okay. Go.
so it looks like Tom is going to bolt him, play an Angel, and then try to count on Cryptic to win him the game here. Though he's not. Oh, he's.
1 card.
He actually couldn't even cast Cryptic. He was pretty far away from it. So I think maybe he wanted to, but then realized he had a red, white, blue, blue. Since
All right, Restoration Angel gets in, drops Dmitry Butakov to 4. That's 2 turns. I mean, Budakov's got to win
6.
or at least get rid of the Resto Angel.
yeah, I think actually Butakov is in really good shape here. Because Tom can't cast the Cryptic, Budakov's able to flashback Lingering Souls and just cast Lingering Souls and just put a bunch of blockers into place, and then strip Martell's hand.
Looks like the counting on the fingers that Tom Martell is doing right now is just a little bit of showmanship, I think.
Well, yeah, mostly he's trying to decide whether he wants to Tectonic Edge here, which I guess he's going to just because he has nothing else to do with his mana. This also protects Tom from Tectonic Edge since he no longer can be targeted by it.
Overgrown Tomb is the choice. And go.
So Dmitry deciding whether he wants to dredge Life from the Loam. He might not actually cast Life from the Loam here, so I could definitely see him just drawing for his turn and then casting like a Lingering Souls into Birds of Paradise.
I'll just draw.
Yep.
As predicted.
So he's got a full grip of cards here. See if we can take a look at what he's got access to.
Godless Shrine, Birds of Paradise, another Deathrite Shaman, another Lingering Souls, Unburial Rites, 2x Verdant Catacombs. Remember, he also already has a Lingering Souls in the graveyard.
Yeah, and because he's at 4, he really doesn't want to crack a fetch or take any damage off lands because Tom has so many Lightning Bolts and Lightning Helixes in his deck.
Okay, there's the Deathrite Shaman. Now, of course, that can also give him life.
Yeah, and then he's going to flashback the Lingering Souls here. And Tom's under a good amount of pressure. I mean, he's got to draw. Electrolyze would be nice. A Hallowed Fountain does let him cast Sphinx's Revelation for 1, but I don't know if that's really what he's looking for here.
Probably not the top play. Okay, he's going to swing in.
Yeah, he's going to tap Destroy Target Spirit Token.
Yeah, right.
It's like he has a Visara in play, but it can only target spirits. So he is going to go ahead and go for the Revelation. He's getting to that point where he's so low on resources that he needs to just use everything he has.
Okay, Deathrite Shaman taps, exiles a land from the graveyard, and you can add some mana of any color. For black and tap, you can exile an instant or a sorcery, and each opponent loses 2 life. And for green, you can tap it, exile a creature card, and you gain 2 life. Yeah. And that's from any graveyard. So you can, especially if you're playing a dredge deck, you may not want to take those things out of your graveyard.
Yeah, and he can also mess with Tom's Snapcaster Mages, though here he's going to really want it to gain life just as much as possible because he's getting to the point where the only way he's losing is to just getting burned out. So if he would like to avoid that, especially since he's kind of gotten the board and Tom's hand under lockdown. As soon as he has time, he's going to start Raven Scriming. But
Remove Tectonic Edge.
looks like he's casting another spell here.
No, he's exiling.
Yeah, he's getting mana for it, so he can play something looks like the Lingering Souls.
Flashing back to Lingering Souls. So Tom Martell going to face down 5 Lingering Souls tokens.
Tom's actually at 7 also, just because of random beatdowns, just mostly taking damage off his lands, playing lands untapped.
There's the Revelation for 1.
Yep, and there's the Snapcaster Mage, so that is a burn spell, though he has to use it as soon as possible, otherwise Deathrite Shaman can shut the Snapcaster off. But Tom is under some amount of pressure here.
Snapcaster the Bolt to take out the Shaman.
Yeah, part of the problem with that is like you don't end up actually winning the game from that spot, but I don't really know what path Tom has either, since he can actually even get Tectonic Edge now that he has 4 mana, which he had to play his 4th land, but it means that Dmitry can Tectonic Edge the Sacred Foundry. Since, again, Dmitry's in the spot where he has to look at how Tom is actually going to kill him, and it's almost all involving direct damage. So Lightning Bolt or Lightning Helix. So he's going to Snapcaster now.
Yep.
And Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt the Shaman, yep.
So he's
Go ahead.
kind of hoping that he draws a bunch of Lightning Bolts from here on out, but it's going to be tough. Thundermaw Hellkite would have been pretty amazing, but he's pretty far away from casting that one now.
Drop.
Yep.
So Dmitry back to just drawing for his turn 2, especially since he's got so much stuff going on. He doesn't really need to dredge life from the Loam.
Twice.
So Raven's Crime going to work.
Takes Shadow of Doubt.
Twice.
Takes the Cryptic Command. So Tom Martell in the situation the control deck does not want to be in with an empty hand.
And soon to be a board without a ton of lands. Well, a Scalding Tarn helps.
So Butakov at 4, Tom Martell at 8.
So Butakov has to be careful here, because if Tom does draw Thundermaw Hellkite, Butakov is just dead. So that is something that, I mean, Tom now has an out to win here.
Liliana.
Do you think that Butakov taking the relatively conservative line of not attacking with a couple of those Spirit tokens is the right call, knowing that he just loses the Hellkite?
Yeah, I think Butakov may have wanted to actually just Tectonic Edge away one of Martell's lands here, like Dredge Life Loom to do that, and then maybe try to kill him with Spirit tokens over the next couple turns. There aren't that many things that Tom can draw. Cryptic Command now is not lethal because Butakov is at 4, so I think for the most part, sending in a couple of the Spirit tokens is probably worth doing.
Okay, so Tom Martell gets Steam Vents.
Bring them, importantly, up to double red and triple blue, both.
So what's his dream draw here?
No, Thundermaw Hellkite, which he would just flip over. Cryptic Command into Lightning Bolt does the trick, though.
All right, that's Celestial Colonnade,
Yep.
which probably forces Dmitry to dredge. He does.
And here, I think he wants to do what you suggested earlier, which was blow up one of the non-colonnade lands. Here, I think it's actually really good to just blow up the Steam Vents.
Targeting Tectonic Edge. Ground Tomb.
Yeah. Watching the gift deck
Fountain.
do its work is pretty awesome. I do like this deck. So
So he's getting an Overgrown Tomb.
more fodder to discard to Liliana as well.
Let's discard.
Everybody discard. Tick Liliana up 1. There's the Tech Edge.
So yeah, game 1, the double red is not too important, but again, looking at Tom's sideboard, the Thundermaw Hellkite makes it a little bit more crucial to kill the Steam Vents. You could also consider, like you had said, attacking with Spirit tokens, like
Destroy Steam Vents.
so. Bam, Steam Vents down.
Go.
Yeah, I like the more aggressive line here from Butakov.
Yeah, I mean, next turn he's going to attack once he Liliana's away the Restoration Angel. Though if he doesn't get Tectonic Edge back, Celestial Colony can't actually jump in the way of the Edict. Just tap itself to activate itself. But I think the Spirit tokens are going to end the game fairly soon. And honestly, Tom can't draw that many cards to get out of it here. Killing a Sacred Foundry also might be pretty effective at cutting down on the things Tom could draw.
Thundermaw Hellkite obviously taking 2 red as well, which Tom no longer has.
Yeah, which is why you destroy Steam Vents over a Celestial Colonnade, even though Celestial Colonnade is obviously the more powerful card once in play.
There's the dredge again from Dmitry.
Yeah, he is going pretty deep into his graveyard here, which is the kind of what the deck does.
Tom Martell does as you suggest.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a tech edge anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Martell hanging on for dear life here. He's at 7.
Life.
Dmitry Butakov is at 4, but pretty secure position. He cast life from the Loam again.
So yeah, he's got a lot of resources at his disposal, whereas Tom is down to 4 lands in play, no cards in hand, and just a Restoration Angel in play.
Here come the tokens. Tom shoves the Restoration Angel in front of one of them. It's going to drop him to 3. He scoops him up, and we are going to go to Game 3. Tom Martell versus Dmitry Butakov, 2013 Magic the Gathering World Championship. Any difference in the sideboarding in Game 3 for being on the play versus on the draw? We'd like to thank Card House Games for being an official card retailer here at Worlds Week. Enter the code AMS10 when ordering at cardhousegames.com for 10% off your next purchase. For more information, visit cardhouse.com. So do you think any difference? Well, now that I'm on the play, I'm going to...
The only card that really changes in value on the player draw is Molten Rain, and I highly doubt Tom's bringing Molten Rain against the Life from the Loam deck.
Right.
So I think for the most part, the players might re-sideboard based on what they've seen, but I think that whatever plan they had before shouldn't have changed much. I mean, both decks did kind of what they were supposed to do that game.
Right. Alrighty then. Tom Martell on your left, Dmitry Butakov on your right.
1/1 here as Tom considers the Pyroclasms, but I don't know how much I like those. Looks like the Ajani did come out.
Yeah, you have to remember sometimes you can't significantly dilute what your deck does to bring in sideboard cards. Oh, speaking of Life for Loam, there it is. It is from Ravnica City of Guilds, the original Ravnica. We see it there, reprinted in Modern Masters. Superior card.
Yeah, Life in the Loam, I remember the first time I really started using the card was in an old Burning Wish Seismic Assault deck. This is back in like 2006 or so. And actually, Makihito Mihara, who didn't quite make the Hall of Fame this year, though I did vote for him, he built the Confinement Assault Loam deck, which was the first deck to really use Life from the Loam in a tournament. And he used Seismic Assault, Solitary Confinement, and Life from the Loam, and Life from the Loam fuels both those engines. Since every turn you dredge it, and you get back 3 lands.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you can use those to fuel a variety of things. Here we saw Dmitry Butakov using it to fuel Raven's Crime and just reuse Tectonic Edge over and over again.
For the retrace. We can see it was used with retrace there in Bronson Magnan's GP Lincoln win in Modern. Bronson, actually one of my local Florida guys.
Yeah, I almost played him, actually. Andrew Cuneo beat me in the semifinals there. Otherwise, I would have played Bronson. But he was using Flame Jabs, Raven's Crimes, and then flashback cards also. As we saw with Lingering Souls in Budakov's deck, Bronson had Ancient Grudge, for example.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things you can do with Life from the Loam. Apparently it's in a dual deck, too, which is where the Knight of the Reliquary came from, not from the vault. But yeah, Life from the Loam, it was, I think, the dredge card that sees the most play in not broken decks, unlike Stinkweed Imp or Golgari Grave Troll, which just kind of go off.
Okay. We hear that Craig Wesco has beaten Brian Kibler 2-1 in their match.
Yeah, that was black-white tokens against white-green hate bears, as Kibler calls it.
Hate bears.
Yeah, a bear being just any 2/2 for 2, and he's got a lot of them in there.
Yeah, he likes to get into the red zone, doesn't he?
Yeah, and Wesco, to the surprise of just about no one, brought basically 2 white Winnie decks to the tournament, which is doing well for him so far. I mean, he made a good play there.
I asked him about that yesterday or the day before. How much gaming the field did he do? And he said really he thinks that the advantage that he gets from playing the style of deck that he knows extremely well is greater than any matchup advantage he might get from figuring out who's going to play what.
Yeah, I think unless you end up in a format like if he was playing, you know, Legacy maybe where like a mono white deck is, well, actually mono white deck won last Grand Prix. If he was playing Vintage where a mono white deck just wasn't viable, he would probably play a different deck. But both decks he played were quite good, so he didn't really lose out on much by doing that, and he does have a ton of experience playing the deck. Also building the deck, just knowing that you're going to test and build this white weenie deck is a pretty big advantage.
Right. All right, so both players have drawn their opening hands. Here in Game 3, this is round 10 action from the 2013 World Championship.
I'll keep.
Tom Martell says, I'm keeping. Butakov says, I'm keeping too. There's Arid Mesa for Martell. Butakov follows up with Saltmarsh.
For 17.
Yep.
Yeah, he's starting with a 1-drop is exactly what he wants to do, and he actually hasn't done it so far this match.
So he's going to shock himself with the Overgrown Tomb.
Yeah, likely in a Temple Garden.
Oh, Temple Garden.
And then just, you know, dropping the Birds of Paradise there.
There it is.
So if Martell doesn't have a Bolt, Butakov could have a turn 2 Nihil Reliquary, and even if he does have a Bolt, he has a Tarmogoyf too, which is a good play.
Good.
So we could be on early pressure on Tom Martell from Dmitry Butakov.
Activate.
Yeah, Tom has a hand with a lot of answers, which is fairly common for a deck of his kind. Just because basically all his deck is removal, card draw, and Restoration Angels. So I think that Tom has a number of different options here, up to and including Mana Leak and Pyroclasm. So whatever Butakov casts this turn, with likely Knight of the Reliquary, Tom could either Mana Leak it or just wait on that. I mean, if he has a Supreme Verdict in hand, which I believe he does, then he could potentially let Butakov have Knight active. But especially with only 2 lands, I would find it hard to believe he wouldn't just Mana Leak the Knight here.
Yeah, we talked earlier that Dmitry Butakov qualified here from the Magic Online Championship Series. We know that Tom Martell qualified as the Pro Tour Gate Crash winner.
Yeah, here with the Aristocrats deck, the black, red, white. So it is tough for Butakov. I mean, to have one of your first big live tournaments be the Players' Championship is certainly not an easy thing to manage.
So Shuhei Nakamura has decked Yuya Watanabe and won Game 3 of their match, taking it 2-1.
That's pretty impressive.
So the Mana Leak as predicted.
So there goes the dual decks Knight of the Reliquary. Tom does need to draw a 3rd land here. He's at this point on a 1-drop, a 2-drop, a 3-drop, and a 4-drop, so he can only cast half the cards in his hand. It'd be interesting to see if he Pyroclasms away the bird. I don't think he will because Pyroclasm is a lot for Lingering Souls, but he might, if he doesn't draw land, he might feel that he doesn't want to get too far behind here.
Especially if Butakov gets greedy with the Lingering Souls and casts it and flash it back right away.
Looks like since Martell did miss on land, he's just going to kill the birds.
All right, we're tied here in Game 3. Round 10 action. Tom Martell facing Dmitry Butakov.
Yep.
And there's another Knight of the Reliquary.
This time from Conflux here.
No 3rd land draw for Martell.
Well, he peeled the Steam Vents, so
he did.
He drew a Restoration Angel the turn before, which was not really what he was looking for. Steam Vents does let him use Vendilion Click, but if he wants to get rid of the Knight, he has to path it right now, which is not a pretty prospect. He doesn't know that Butakov's short on land, but Butakov did draw a land to make his 3rd land drop. So him pathing the Knight would actually be pretty good for Butakov just because he is a little short on mana. Though having a Knight active also solves that problem.
Right. All right, Martell kind of deep in the tank here.
Yeah, part of the problem with playing Vendilion Click is that he then might have to Supreme Verdict it away, but it looks like he's just going to bite the bullet and get Vendilion Click out here. At this point, he might want to just draw step it on Butakov if he's going to do that.
Go ahead.
Looks like the plan. That does give Butakov a window to cast gifts if he wants to. He doesn't have one yet, but Knight of the Reliquary gets you up to your 4th mana because you can tap the land, then sack it, then tap the new land that comes into play.
Card.
4.
All right. So, Tom Martell gets a good look at Butakov's hand, which includes negate Thragtusk.
Yeah, the Thragtusk did come in.
Tarmogoyf, Life from the Loam. Yeah,
so I think he's probably going to want to take Thragtusk here because it's actually pretty tough to deal with. It even gets around Supreme Verdict. Life from the Loam isn't really doing a ton, though Butakov could use Night of the Reliquary to pick up a Ghost Quarter or Tectonic Edge and really start harassing Tom's lands. So Life from the Loam is a possibility too. Yeah, Tom is not faced with good choices here, just because if he knew he was drawing a 4th land, he would be in a lot better shape. But because he doesn't,
sure,
he really does have to respect the fact that he might not get to cast Supreme Verdict for 2 or 3 turns. So, this is certainly not an easy decision. He's got a lot of viable options. The only card I'm certain he doesn't want to take is the Negate.
Right.
Negate is not, especially since Tom's biggest spell is uncounterable anyway.
Martell putting some serious thought into this.
Martell tends to like thinking about things seriously. But it has served him well so far, so I can't really fault him. So, Vindiling Click, that card has done some work. Not only does it combo with Restoration Angel, it's an instant, and it's both disruptive to your opponent, and it lets you filter away cards you didn't want.
So it looks like he's about to point at the Negate.
The Negate. Wow. All right. So, looking at Tom's hand, I guess he really does want to make sure that the Path to Exile resolves. But I think you can count on maybe casting Supreme Verdict in a turn or 2, and you're not going to die before then. But looks like Thragtusk is likely to come out on this side here. Thragtusk is also Butakov's best play against a potential Supreme Verdict, which he doesn't know Tom has, but I think he can predict.
So Night of the Reliquary sacks Forest. Very stylish, white-bordered forest, as a matter of fact.
Hey, I like his revised lands. He's got all revised lands there, and I think it works out pretty well.
For a Tectonic Edge. So he's going to cast the Thragtusk and let Tom know, as soon as you drop a 4th land, I'm going to strip it.
Yeah, and again, Tom's not going to be able to avoid playing a 4th land if he wants to play his other spells.
There is the Thragtusk. So it's going to enter the battlefield and gain of 5 life for Dmitry Butakov.
Which is also relevant since Tom does have a Vindiling Click in play and could potentially have a Restoration Angel out here. Tom wants a 4th land more than anything else. Well, maybe not that 4th land.
Not that 4th land. Because it's a Celestial Colonnade, so it's going to come into play tapped and turn on Butakov's Tectonic Edge nonetheless.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, you still have to play it. You're not doing yourself any favors by not playing it, but it's pretty unfortunate that as good as Celestial Colonnade is, it is not the card you want to rip for your 4th land. So Tom is not really faced with a good race, especially since the Knight's a 5/5 right now, and is going to be a 6/6 as soon as Butakov uses Tectonic Edge. So it's got some stuff to deal with here.
Is there value to?
Well, you might as well attack if he's not planning on blocking, and he doesn't really have any favorable blocks. Especially Restoration Angel is a really good card in a race. You can block with like a Vanilla Click, then blink it, but for the most part, Tom has to be concerned with the fact that Butakov is outracing him and can actually cast his spells.
Right. So path the Thragtusk. Oh, path the Knight.
Yeah, well, the Knight you can't bolt. You can't actually bolt the Thragtusk if you want to stop 5 damage. And also, the Knight will eventually pull up a Treetop Village, which is kind of annoying. So Butakov with still a Tarmogoyf to play and potentially a Life from the Loam to combo with his Tectonic Edge here. So, I think Butakov is in fairly good shape here. He does need to make sure that he doesn't lose a race to a Restoration Angel plus like a Lightning Helix. But I think between the Tarmogoyf, the Thragtusk, and the Tectonic Edge, he might be able to disrupt Tom. If Tom is able to cast Supreme Verdict, though, that will swing things significantly. And Tom is only 1 land away from doing so. Butakov had drawn Gifts Ungiven off the Vindiling Click, though, which is one of the better cards to draw.
So Thragtusk gets into the red zone, drops Tom Martell down to 10. Butakov standing at 14.
So now, if he wants to make sure he resolves things, he just casts a Tarmogoyf, maybe
Destroy Stevens.
pass with a Gifts Ungiven, or he's just going to go ahead and use the Tectonic Edge first.
Float red.
What?
Red mana.
Okay,
Tom Martell's going to float some red mana.
my end of turn. Give some given.
So it looks like Tom could use this red mana, though, if he wanted to. Because as Butakov goes to his end of turn, Tom actually has an opportunity to bolt the Thragtusk if he wants, but...
I have mana floating in your main phase still.
Yes, sure.
So
So,
oh, no.
Uh-huh.
I have mana floating. You can't just go to your end step. I can play spells in your...
okay.
Yeah, so you
Yes,
still have
sir.
that 4 mana untapped. We're still in your main phase. I'm just thinking.
All right.
Sorry.
so yeah, Tom is going to want to think about this Lightning Bolt, just to make it clear. So, if he bolts the Thragtusk, Vindilincook can actually trade for a 3/3, or a Restoration Angel can trade. I think I actually kind of like Tom bolting here, just because he wants to draw a 4th land, and then once he draws the 4th land, he wants to cast Restoration Angel, so getting the Thragtusk off the board now is decent. On the other hand, if he doesn't bolt, he can, and draws the 4th land, he can block with the Thragtusk with the click, and then just blink it with Restoration Angel. So they both are pretty valid. I think I like just bolting, but it's pretty close either way.
Who doesn't like bolting?
Well, if Tom doesn't draw the 4th land, it is better to not bolt. So there is that. I mean, that is definitely a consideration. And it is made a little stranger by the fact that you know Dmitry is casting Gifts Ungiven here. So puts you in a not great spot either way. But it looks like he is going to bolt, which, yeah, I do like that.
Okay, there's the Beast token.
Looks like a Garruk Relentless.
And there's the Gifts Ungiven. So what's Dmitry going for here?
Looks like just value, like not necessarily like the full combo. Sadly, you can't get multiple Lingering Souls, but usually if you go for the Unburial Rites plan, you have to go for just Unburial Rites and the creature, just so they both go to the graveyard. But right now, he actually can just go ahead and get like Lingering Souls plus Raven's Crime plus like just decent lands if he wants to, because he's got Life and Loam already. Like Treetop Village is a good one. Gavany Township is a potential one. Ghost Quarter. Tom doesn't have that many basics, though the game's probably not going to last long enough to take him completely out of basics.
That looks like his Treetop Village.
Yeah. Nice DCI promo one.
Yeah.
And
Raven's
potentially, a Raven's Crime, a Souls, and then maybe a Township. Tom under a bit of pressure here.
Yeah, Dmitry has the Township there at the top of the deck, so it's a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
No?
Unburial Rites is also not bad just for a straight up value, just casting it for 4 and 5 mana, as he's done so far this entire match.
Right.
I don't think he's comboed once. I mean, besides the Raven's Crime Life and Loam engine. But in terms of Unburial Rites, it's just been like a 5 mana 2-for-1.
Dmitry Butakov has mounted a little bit of a comeback here. He stumbled out of the gate yesterday and is trying to work his way back up to parity.
Yeah, he's been doing well. He went 2-1 in the draft. He actually just lost to Josh in round 3. And this is the first round of Modern, so if he can win this, he'll be 3-1 today, which is not a bad start at all.
With his 2-4 yesterday, it would bring him to 5-5.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't end up making top 4, even having a good showing here still means a lot.
Sure.
You have 2 cards?
Well, I mean, I think the online one is where a lot of people think, well, maybe that guy's not as good as the rest of the guys. I'm not sure I agree, because you got to battle a lot of people to win the online.
Yeah, I think that qualifying through the Magic Online Championships is one of the harder ways to qualify. I know that even being able to play in the Magic Online Championships requires some work, so you have to qualify for it, then win it. So Tom has drawn his 4th land, it looks like.
Yeah, and he plays that Restoration Angel, blinks the Vendilion Click, takes the Treetop Village.
Lingering Souls.
Yeah. From the click and now from it.
So yeah, he gets to put Lingering Souls on the bottom of the library, which is nice since he can't flash it back. Leaving Butakov with still a lot of options, but Lingering Souls is definitely one of his best plays here.
Sorry, cards again.
I have 1.
One, and it's Supreme Verdict, which...
Tom's not in a hurry to cast here.
Right. He's got 6 power on the board. I mean, Martell has 6 power on the... I mean, yeah, Tom Martell has 6 power on the board. Dimitri's at 11. Both of those guys fly. So there's a chance that if Butakov doesn't do something about those 2 creatures, he's on a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a foregone conclusion here. I think Dmitry has a lot of ways to be in trouble this game. And Restoration Angel plus Vendilion Click are going to make it so he doesn't have a whole lot of options, especially since the Lingering Souls kind of was his plan to not die here.
Top Village, Tectonic Edge, and Forest.
Loaming back here.
What was the third one? Treetop, Tectonic,
Treetop,
and what?
Tectonic Edge, and
What was
Forest
the third
here.
land you said? Treetop, Tectonic
And
Edge,
Forest.
and Forest.
He's going to kick things off by Raven's Crime.
Raven's Crime you.
For the Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, so Butakov has all the information, but he does have to find a way to not die to these flyers here. One way is to play a Knight of the Reliquary this turn, since once he has a Knight of the Reliquary plus the Beast, he has lethal out next turn, which means Tom can't necessarily attack with both creatures, since he's going to be able to put enough lands into his graveyard here. He's got, what, 3 right now, so he just needs to get 2 more, which could mean Tectonic Edging his own land.
And there it
How
is.
big is that? How big?
So it looks like a
5/5.
5/5.
Good.
So if Tom misses here, attacking with both doesn't quite work, though Butakov might not go for it. As Tom takes a look to see what Butakov could dredge up.
As Tom's looking at his graveyard, we didn't see what he drew. What does he want to have drawn?
He basically needs anything that can interact with the board, whether it's like a Lightning Bolt, a Path to Exile, a Lightning Helix, another Restoration Angel, a Snapcaster Mage. All of those cards would actually do something. What he wants to avoid is drawing some kind of counter magic, or something like a Thundermaw Hellcat, which he just can't cast.
So does he Helix just to Butakov's face to gain the 3 life, keep him out of lethal range?
Well, he's got a lot of options. If he draws Lightning Helix, there's a lot of ways he can win the game. He probably just attacks with both, and then tries to see if Butakov goes for lethal by tech edging his own land. And then once he does that, he can just Helix Butakov or just Helix the Beast. So we're going to find out shortly, since the spotter didn't want to wait for Tom to finish examining and cataloging Butakov's graveyard here. But Tom has to kind of figure out what ways can he lose this game. Let's see. There is a possibility if he doesn't draw anything, he could just go for it and hope Butakov doesn't tech edge his own land. There's a chance that actually works, but I don't know how likely that is. He's looked up looks like the Oracle text of a card as well. So he's crunching the numbers here. There aren't that many cards that would do something and lead to Tom not attacking, though. So if he's thinking about attacking and drew a relevant card, it's likely that he has something good. Revelation for 1 being the answer. So that is actually one of the more interesting ones, but unfortunately, since Butakov can retrace also to get lands in his graveyard, Revelation for 1 does not put Tom out of lethal range.
Okay, he goes in with the Vendilion Click, keeping the Restoration Angel back to block, obviously because it has the 4 toughness, meaning it can block the Beast and live.
Yeah, so Butakov now dredging to try to hit a Lingering Souls is his best dredge here. Well, he hit 3 lands, so the Knight is more than lethal.
So he's 8/8 now.
So if he can get Knight up to an 11 here, he needs to do that to force the Angel to chump. See, he can. He has life on the Loam, but doesn't want to actually take lands out of the graveyard. Looks like he's just attacking.
He's 8/8.
Yep.
It looks like he could get 10 lands into his graveyard, which is not quite enough.
But it would still require Tom to draw a business spell
Yeah.
to win.
Yeah, well, or a land for the Colonnade, though Butakov does have a tech edge. One of Butakov's other options actually was to play tech edge his own land, then Raven's Crime himself, or Raven's Crime Tom, discarding his last land, rather. That puts 11 into his graveyard, forces Angel to block. Tom goes to 5 from the Beast token.
Right?
But then you're leaving yourself without a tech edge for the Celestial Colonnade.
Yeah. Okay. I have no blocks. I go to 3.
Collections, yep.
So Tom just takes it, because that leaves him with the most outs here.
Unburial Rights, Track Task.
And then Butakov has Unburial Rights for the Thrag
What
Tusk.
a backbreaker for Tom Martell. Burial Rights into Thrag Tusk. That's going to gain Dmitry Butakov 5 life.
Yeah, so he can
Colonnade.
tech edge the Colonnade now. So I don't.
Yep.
Tom needs to draw like
I go to 2.
I was going to say Cryptic Command, but he has a Mountain and a Sacred Foundry out, so I think the Unburial Rites on the Thrag Tusk is going to put him under enough pressure that it's going to be hard for him to finish the game here.
Yeah, even Supreme Verdict doesn't help because Butakov gets the 3/3 beast from the Thrag Tusk.
Yeah, I think that Butakov has successfully ground out Tom here, like, reduced him to 0 resources. It looks like Tom actually drew Engineer Explosives, which is a potential sideboard card, or rather a card in the sideboard, so I don't think that's quite going to do it. He's not dead this turn if that's what that was, though. Looks like that is not the case. Either way, he needs to draw an answer, so he's...
Nope, there's the handshake. Dmitry Butakov has taken down Tom Martell 2-1 here in round 10 of the Magic the Gathering World Championship 2013 from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Hey, everybody, back in the booth. I'm Sheldon Menery, sitting next to Luis Scott Vargas. That's some magic.
Yeah, that is one of the more awesome games we've ever seen. Just the fact that the gift stack always leads to games like that is one of the reasons I like it.
There's a lot of playing of the deck. There's a lot going back and forth, up and down, and around.
The fact that Dmitry Butakov has his hand and his graveyard, and they're both kind of like his hand, that alone means he's got a ton of options.
Okay, we are done with round 10 action. We are going to kick it back over to the news desk. We'll see you for round 11 shortly.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. Rich Hagan, Brian David Marshall with you. You see the trophy there heading towards your screen. What a fantastic trophy that is. And who is left in the running to get it? Well, that's all about our scoreboard, BDM. Why don't we take a look and see how things stand with 10 rounds gone and 2 rounds to go. There you see it. Now, it looks roughly like this. Obviously, you're looking at the left of screen for what really matters. You have 2 co-leaders at 8 and 2, Reed Duke and Shahar Shenhar. They have both reached that 8-match win line in round 10. So in terms of tie breaks, that's really good for them, right?
It's excellent for them. As far as who will play next round, that is, by all accounts, bad for Shahar Shenhar, who is dreading this matchup against Reed Duke's bad hexproof deck, which we saw demolish Josh Utter-Layton this round.
Okay, so those 2 are 8 and 2 and will play each other in the next round. We think it's very likely that those 2 will both make it in. That seems not absolutely certain, but that's a reasonable starting point. Then you look at 7-3, Ben Stark, who has just lost to Shahar Shenhar. He stumbled in the 3rd game on mana, and that was in a blue-white-red mirror that demanded, let's have 18 land aside, and Ben kind of went, well, I've done the first 2 of the 18, can we stop now? And Shahar just kept laying land. That's what happened there. You've got Brian Kibler at 6 and 4, Josh Utter-Layton at 6 and 4, and you have Craig Wescoe at 6 and 4. It is starting to look increasingly
Weren't there a lot of 3s at one point? Where did all the 3s go?
Yeah, well, we kept playing and we kept playing, and suddenly it's 5s and 6s, and and there are still the occasional 3s and 2s and 1s. But for the most part, we are dealing with those 2, Reed, Duke, and Shahar Shenhar at 8, Stark at 7, and then 3 players on 6 wins. Josh Utter-Layton, Craig Wescoe, and Brian Kibler. By my reckoning, that's 6 players for 4 slots. That's where we are with 2 rounds to go. But it's deck tech time, it's modern time. Yesterday we had a chance to check out what some of the players were doing a couple of days before the event. So let's get down to the action. It's Stanislav Sivka and Martin User telling us all about their modern deck.
Hi, welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zach Hill, and I'm here with Stanislav Sivka, Pro Tour Return to Ravnica champion, and Martin Uza, longtime pro veteran. And we're going to talk about their blue-white-red control deck for Modern. So just really quick before we get into the specific cards, can you tell us just a really brief overview kind of what your deck does and how it went?
Well, our deck is a control deck, and its goal is to stabilize the board and answer everything your opponent do, and slowly win the game with the threats you have and like most focus on card advantage and all the answers. So.
All right, slow, grindy card advantage.
Yeah.
I'm interested. All right, let's look at what some of those cards are. So we start out with a way to, survive and kill creatures. We see Lightning Bolt, Helix, Electrolyze, and Path to Exile. Now, a lot of decks play 4 paths. You're only playing 2. In general, how did you arrive at this particular removal suite?
The Path to Exile doesn't very work well with Mana Leak, so we didn't want to bring extra lands to other people, so we just need not as many of them because, we don't want.
It's not a great combo with Mana Leak.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
not
not good
great
with
combo.
Mana. Gotcha.
Yeah, and but we need some on creatures we cannot reach with the Helix and Lightning Bolt because it deals only 3 damage. So if someone plays bigger creature, we need some answers. So Path to Exile does the work. Yeah, you don't want more of them, and you focus on cheap removal like Lightning Bolt because most of the creatures are like small. You can kill them.
They have less than 3 toughness.
Yeah. So you just blow them up with 1 mana, and it's very good. And
Sure.
the Helix brings you life back, so it's very important against aggro decks because you gain 3 lives, and they cannot burn you
can't kill
out.
you.
And
Yeah,
The thing is, you do only have two path, but you have Snapcaster, so you can use it more times.
Yeah,
So
it gives you extra
you
ones.
are playing 2, but you can pretty much use it 4 times over the course of the game.
And before this, y'all were telling me actually that Electrolyze is one of the most powerful spells in the format. Now, clearly, it's card advantage, but 3 mana for 2 damage, not necessarily intuitively the greatest rate. Why is that card so good right now?
well, let's imagine your opponent play Birds of Paradise, and you blow them up with 1 card, and you draw another one. So it's 3 for 1. So it's very good in this example. And
I like
overall,
3
it's
for
very
There's
good.
a lot of X1s in the format. There's
Yeah.
Lingering Souls, Mana Birds.
Dark
there's-
Confidant.
Yeah, it's
the-
Wendy on click
yeah.
and so on. So.
Cool. So yeah,
Card is
I like
very
gaining
good.
card advantage
Yeah.
and killing my
Right,
opponent's
yeah.
creatures. All right, cool. Let's look at some more of the ways that we deal with threats that aren't necessarily creatures. Now we see 4 copies of Spell Snare, 3 copies of Mana Leak you mentioned earlier, and of course 4 Cryptic Command, which as far as I can remember, I want to play 4 of in every format that it's legal.
Yeah.
How did we get to this particular suite of counter spells?
Like the Cryptic Command is an obvious choice because
Yeah.
it
Pretty much
doesn't
what you said.
it doesn't even counter spell. It's like tapping your
Yeah.
opponent's guys to.
It does everything.
It's like Time Walk. Sometimes it's like stopping combos, and so it's clear that you want to play 4 of these. And the Spell Snare, you have some problems with some creatures like Tarmogoyf and the Dark Confidant and the key spells that cost 2 mana like Voice, and some combo cards costs 2 mana as well, like the Scapeshift has Ramp for 2 mana, they play Remand, and so it's really important to have 1 mana answer for these cards. So that's why they are for Spell Snares. And the Mana Leak, I don't know how to explain this. It's simply counter spell.
It's just a good counter spell, just a solid
you need
counter
it.
spell.
You don't. Counter spell is not legal anymore, so you have to play Mana Leak. Yeah.
Well, we can't always get what we want, I guess. All right, so that's how you deal with some of the early threats and how you deal with what your opponent's doing. Let's take a look at what happens once you get there. So we see 4 copies of Snapcaster Mage. Now, earlier you were saying Snapcaster Mage lets you play like 2 paths, 3 Mana Leaks, some one-offs that we'll see later. Explain exactly how that works.
There's so many cheap spells in the deck. There's like Lightning Bolts and Mana Leaks and Path and whatever.
Spell Snare,
Yeah, Spell Snares. So it lets you play the card again on say turn 3 or whatever, and plus you have a body that can block a 2/2, like trade for another card. It's just card advantage.
Sure.
It also provides you quite fast clock. Let's imagine you play against combo and you like Lightning Bolt on turn 2, and on turn 3 you play Snapcaster and Nocturne and Lightning Bolt, and suddenly you have very fast clock. So they have to move on, and you catch them with counter spells. And
Yeah, it pretty much lets you change gears against some decks. You play a really long game, just kill everything they play, whatever. Or you can just do this. If you play against a control deck, you can just play him on turn 2 and just start attacking.
Okay, cool. So we see him. We see Sphinx's Revelation. It's kind of good in every format that it's in. It's a really good spell. Gideon Jura, a little bit atypical. Explain to us why he's in the deck.
Well, his advantage is his loyalty 6, and his plus ability puts him to 8. So if someone's playing burn spells like Lightning Bolt or whatever, they have
and a lot of decks play Lightning Bolt.
They have big problem to reach him because let's imagine you playing Mirror Match and you play him and put him on 8. Then suddenly they have problem to solve it, and also it's good in killing creatures like Tarmogoyf, and it buys you a lot of time against aggro decks like Affinity, and it stops for 1 turn the Splinter Twin combo. So yeah, it's very useful.
That's a good
card.
point too.
Yeah, so.
All right, cool. So these are kind of how it starts to end the game and capitalize. Let's take a look at the next slide. These are sort of some one-offs you play. I know Think Twice ties the deck together. Pyroclasm, some additional redundancy against smaller creatures. Shadow of Doubt, really good against Birthing Pod. It combos with Path to Exile too.
Yeah, and it's the best is against Scapeshift because it's like counterspell against them. And they even play like Cavern of Souls and Primeval Titan, and it's the only way to stop this combo. So we probably need this card, so that's why it's here. And it's also catch the fetch lands because let's imagine you sacrifice your Scalding turn 2 and you get Shadow of the Doubt, and it's like
it gets people. It gets people a lot, and they feel so bad.
Oh,
when
that's
that
the main part, right? Is that they feel terrible about
Everyone feels like, oh my god, you have this? Oh man.
Sweet justice. Okay, so that takes us through the spells. Let's look at the lands really quickly. Obviously, Celestial Colonnade, that is how you kill people. Tectonic Edge disrupts mana bases, can deal with opponents' other creature lands. Yeah, totally.
Colonnade's great.
If we can look at some of the rest of the lands, this is stuff that you see in Modern a lot. I mean, obviously, the fetch lands. Sulfur Falls kind of not something you always see. How did you decide that that's something you wanted to play?
Just an extra dual end.
Extra dual
comes untapped without having to pay 2
It doesn't give you any damage. It's good against aggro decks that you save some life, so it's very good in the deck.
Like
you just don't want to have multiple of them because if you draw them all with the Colonnade and Tectonic Edge, it could come into play tape. So it's the reason why we are playing only one, but it's very good in the
So you can afford one, but one copy is really good.
Yeah.
Cool.
The extra copies would be much worse than the first one.
Sure. Okay. So, and then finally, of course, the rest of the lands, we've got the Ravnica fetch lands. So let's take a look at the sideboard really quickly. Now, there's a lot of one-ofs, and the basics. You kind of need those every once in a while. So now let's take for real a look at the sideboard. These are cards that you have in your main deck already. You just kind of board them in the matchups. They're good. I want to take a look at a few specific cards, though, that aren't in the main deck. Baneslayer Angel is something that always puts a smile on my face. Teferi we haven't seen in a long time. Why are you playing him?
The Teferi is good against the control decks and against most of combo decks because you cannot afford to tap in your own turn.
Right.
So it's very good to you just put in on the table and then you not worrying about what they do in your turn at the end of turn. So it's very powerful on the board. So in the grindy matchups, it's very good. Yeah.
Sure. And like Mind Sensor
is against the Scapeshift and And the Baneslayer, the good thing on Baneslayer is that you don't run many creatures.
Sure.
So your opponents don't know whether they should keep their removal in or not.
Right.
And if it hits the board and your opponent doesn't have an answer, it's extremely powerful. It's like stops the whole army.
Yeah, I mean it wins the game by itself. Okay, so a few more incremental cards we can take a look at. We've got a Wear and Tear, obviously good at killing enchantments and artifacts. Hallowed Burial is a card I'm really curious about. You were saying you were, sort of agonizing over whether you wanted to play this or Wrath of God. Why pay the extra mana to put creatures on the bottom of libraries?
Well, there are plenty of creatures on the Modern that stays on the battlefield even after Wrath. The kitchen things are very problematic for you. The Murder Threat Cap and the Voice of Resurgence.
Sure.
These are the main reasons. And if you imagine you playing Wrath of God and then your opponent used Township to put the counter back on things, it simply doesn't help you much. But when you are playing Burial, you simply destroy all of them. So
sure.
It's 1 mana is worth to invest in.
You pay the extra mana to make sure stuff stays dead. All right, finally, we're going to round this out with just a bunch of ways to win some counterspell fights, I think. We've got Dispel and Counterflux, really good in the mirror. Sowing Salt, obviously, against Tron. And Threads of Disloyalty to steal things like Dark Confidant and Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, thank you guys very much. I'm Zach Hill here with Stanislav Sifka and Martin Yuza. This is the Tournament Center. Let's watch some more Magic.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. Rich and BDM with you with 2 rounds to go. 10 down, 2 to go. It's all Modern all the way. But BDM, while we wait for the precise standings, because I know a lot of people are asking about tie breaks and how that's going to work, so we're going to get the actual standings for you, and I can tell you exactly how those tie breaks are standing, and I hope that'll sort of clear things up at home, because it's not our usual opponent match win percentage, because that's a very sort of, what we're kind of, always wheels within wheels, running over itself, the hamster on the wheel kind of thing. Everyone plays each other over and over again.
Right. The shorthand is if you go 1-0 and then lose, and then you go 0-1 and then win, the first sequence of events would be better than the second sequence of events.
It's a race to each level. So if you're the first player at 5 wins, you're doing better than someone who gets to 5 wins later in the day. If you're the first player to 8 wins, you're doing better than other people who eventually reach 8 wins. The idea is the schedule is harder because you're constantly playing winners and at the top. So Josh Utter-Leighton, who began the day 3-3, has in theory, which is funny given the people he's played against, but in theory he has had a tougher day, an easier day rather, at 3-3 to go 4-3, 5-3, 6-3 and still be in contention than someone who has gone win and started the day with all the 5-1s, all the 4-2s, half of the 3-3s, like a Reed Duke.
Who's been the first person to 5, the first person to 7, the first person to 8.
Yeah, and that's why we're pretty confident that Reed is the man in the money. So, before we do that though, some of you who are having us on pretty loud may be able to hear in the background suddenly the sepulchral tone has been somewhat shattered, and that's because they've let some more people in the building. And I thought, what's all that commotion going on? And it turned out there were a couple of 100 tables out through the other side of our studio, and there were people sitting at them. I recognised many of them. They were Magic players, they were playing Magic. There were scorekeepers, judges.
I saw you talking to Nikolai Potovin earlier, and I was like, wait a minute, Nikolai Potovin's not in the Magic World Championship.
What's he doing here, and what are they doing here? And what they're doing here is what we know that you are doing here too, being part of Worlds Week, this huge 5-day celebration of the great game, and it is getting ready for the World Magic Cup.
71 teams.
Just the 71 this year.
Yeah. 71 teams, 4 players on each team, 4 formats, or 3 formats, broken up into 4 legs of the tournament. We're going to play the top 4 teams over 2 days.
Yeah, and the way we do that is we begin with the 71, and they will all get to play in the first format, which is a team sealed, beginning with M14.
And what's interesting about this is the teams will get to select a player from their 4 who essentially puts on the coach's shirt. You know, is essentially going to sit on the bench and gets to coach, kibitz, give advice, but does not actually play any matches through that entire format. And so it's very interesting to talk to some of the teams about how they make that decision. You know, do you put your weakest limited player on the bench? Or do you want your strongest limited player on the bench because, well, they can give very explicit instructions.
That one now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And shore up a weaker player where that weaker player on the bench is not going to be as useful in all 3 matches. So which way do you go, Rich? What would you do?
I want my best player as the coach, because on every team there are a lot of teams where there is a standout player, a Louis Scott Vargas from last year type thing, Gaudenis Vidigiris, Lithuania, for example. You would say Andre Prost, Latvia would be another. You look at perhaps the Croatian team, Grigor Petric, Maritic, Tony Portolan, 2 very strong players with perhaps 2 less experienced. You want someone experienced behind to guide, I think. But we'll see what people do. That's format 1. Format 2 then is Team Unified Standard, 4 rounds during the back of tomorrow.
Right, and as Zach explained that format yesterday, it's 3 standard decks, stack them on top of each other so that you have 180 cards, and that 180 card deck needs to be standard legal. Or 100, I'm sorry, actually, well, you know,
180.
Yeah, 180 plus, 45 sideboard cards. That deck needs to be standard legal. So there could only be 4 of anything other than basic land across all 3 decks.
Okay.
And again, so we talked to the Belgians in my column 2 weeks ago. And that was interesting where they were again going back to that coaching decision. Then now someone who was coaching needs to be playing, right? When you get to standard,
you can't leave the same coach all the way through.
Right, you can't just leave someone standing along the fence and go, I choose you, and you just hang out over there. You can't do that.
No.
So it was interesting hearing, Vincent Lemois and Marine Leberge talking about which one of those 2 players might be a coach.
Okay, so that is part 2. 71 teams will get whittled down to the top 32 across those 7 rounds.
Where I would like to point out, seeding matters.
Seeding does matter, because on day 2 you'll be put into pods of 4 national teams. You'll then play those other 3 teams in your group. If you finish in the top 2, you advance to the round of 16. And the way you do that, if you finished higher on day 1, you're a higher seed. So if you're both at 2 and 1, you finished higher on day 1, that's you the high seed, you get to go through.
It is conceivable to advance at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
to the next cut.
If a number 4 seed goes 3-0 and then everyone else is 1-2, the number 1 seed would advance at 1-2. 32 becomes 16. We do it all again, but this time the format shifts back to constructed. We did an RTR team limited there, and then they come back. The top 8 will be on Sunday. You'll see the quarters, the semis, the final of the Team World Championship. The World Magic Cup champions will be crowned, and then we'll get back to this lot who are getting ready for their 11th round, and we have the standings after 10, and it's this simple. It goes like this. Reed Duke and Shahar Shenhart, 24 points. Their cumulative tiebreak for Reed, here's a number you're all going to love and cherish, 30.920574. You did ask. Shahar, meanwhile, 30.729183. So they are both, think 30, that's the important thing.
And just to give you an idea about cumulative tiebreakers, you know, if you go down to Martin Yuza, who's in last place, who has just 1 win, his tiebreakers are 3.75. It's an order of magnitude smaller than Shahar Shenhar's tiebreakers.
Ben Stark is on 7 wins at 21 points. He has a cumulative of 27.66, so think 28 for him. Then you have the 3 18s, and this is where it's super tight. You have Brian Kibler, Josh Utter-Leighton, and Craig Wesco. Kibler, 23.74. Josh Utter-Leighton, 23.66. And Craig Wesco, 22.74.
So he's a full point behind Brian Kibler.
Yeah. Now, this is the pairings for the penultimate round. Yuya Watanabe will be on camera at 5-5 against Stanislav Sivka of the Czech Republic at 5-5.
And this is relevant.
It is not entirely outside the realms of possibility that if one of these two wins both, they could just sneak in. I do have to tell you, though, that Watanabe, who heads the 5-5s at the moment, he has a tiebreak of 19.9. That's quite a lot below those 22s and 23s we were telling you about. Now, Reed Duke and Shahar Shenhar go head-to-head in what you think, BDM, is a very lopsided matchup towards Reed Duke. Shahar
seemed to think it was a very lopsided matchup when I was watching them him and Tom Martell prepare for the modern format. So he's playing a similar deck to what we just saw Tom Martell play on camera, where Reed Duke is playing the very, very aggressive banned hexproof deck.
Sure. Okay. So we think Reed Duke may well win that, but they will be in the feature match area too at 8-2. We think those two are the two who should get there. Then we have on text coverage Craig Wesco against Josh Utter-Leighton. They are both 6-4, and they will feel that if they can get to 8-4, they will get in. So they need 2 wins. And then on video, we keep seeing them, they keep going toe-to-toe. But what a matchup to bring you in round 11. From the United States, newly elected into the Hall of Fame, Ben Stark, he's on 7-3. Knowing a win will pretty much be that. He is up against, yet again, 2-time Pro Tour champion and Hall of Famer Brian Kibler at 6-4. If he can win, it brings all sorts of permutations into the mix for the last round. But for the last round to happen, we need a penultimate round. So why don't we do that? Let's send you down to the booth, and it's time for the penultimate round of the World Championship 2013.